much time as possible to tell you the details and think about ordinary.
Well, good morning, or aloha, or both. Aloha. We're grateful to be with you today, very much so. President Wheelwright, we are grateful for the use of your facilities, making your staff and this university available to all of us who come and present here today and interact with everyone else. I also thank Mark and Christine and Jim and their better halves and all the staff who have made this event possible. We're grateful for you all. I think it would be interesting to hear from each one of you and know why you're here. Know the promptings that perhaps came to you when you saw this advertised and what came, and how those evolve over the next couple of days. I'm of the opinion that oftentimes we're led without knowing that. We're led to circumstances, we're led to meetings, we're led to, I used to tell missionaries, we're led to intersections in life with people. And I think that this may be one of those situations. I think Jim yesterday, speaking to the students, talked about those influential people who have been part of his life. And we feel the same way. I'm sure you also will. We are here to meet and to learn far more from you, the presenters and the participants here, and we hope we can do that. Let me begin today. Cindy and I tag team a lot. We'll do this today. We'll tag team back and forth. That's kind of how we approach life. I think is tag teaming. But let me start by just setting the context of poverty in the world. You've heard different statistics. I'm going to give them quickly to you again. 50% of the people on the earth live on less than $2.50 a day. 80% live on less than $10 a day. 80% of the population. The world is mostly in poverty. Those who travel around the world, we know that. You get outside the continent of the United States and Canada and Europe, you know there's lots and lots of poverty in the world. 27 million children of primary age are not in school, and most of those are girls. The majority of those are girls in the world. 22,000 children in the world die every day related to poverty. And some of those children are not statistics. They're people who, this little boy in this slide, his name is Elvis Jose. In one of the first years, we established a Careful Life Learning Center, a little clinic. This is his aunt who would bring him to the clinic and carry him every other day to the clinic to get care. And he was an AIDS baby. He lived about 3 more days after this photo. His parents had died years before this, both from AIDS, and his aunt had taken care of him. And we got to know many of these children who died today and are working in Mozambique. Our message to you today is that your help is not only desperately needed in the world to make a difference, but it will make a difference. It is possible. I think that's the message of social entrepreneurship. It's possible for any person, any group of people to make some difference in what you
do. Maybe you were like me back in the beginning before we got involved in this work. I purposely wouldn't look at those articles about Africa or read them because they were just too sad and there was nothing I could do. I was powerless, so why should I read it? So I just passed by on the other side of the road. And I tried to do little things, I'd find little things to do, but I always had this ache in my heart because I couldn't do more. And then one day, in the midst of our very busy life, I was State Relief Society president. We had all these kids at home. We didn't have a lot of money. It wasn't a very opportune time. My friend went to Africa and said, she knew I was a midwife, and she said, this is a mess. You have got to come and help and do something. And I instantly knew that, well, yeah, right, someday I'll do it. And that was our plan. Someday we'd do it. She said, I just want you to pray that. And so I already knew the answer to the prayer would be no, and okay, and I just gave this sort of half-hearted prayer. Yeah, okay, Kim wants me to pray about it. And I was reading a very innocent article in the church news one day about the World Congress of Families, and it said over 50% of the babies are dying in Africa, and that's because no one's interested in training midwives anymore. And that hit my heart with a thud. And I thought, I cannot ignore that feeling, even though I know the answer is no, but I have to do a little something. And so I called up, talked to church headquarters. I said, is that really true? And what's that all about? And he said, it's really true. And it's about such simple things as if a baby has diarrhea, they don't know that they need to give it more fluid, they give it less. And something changed within me then, and I thought, okay, maybe I can do something. They gave us some advice, some contacts. We ended up, well, my husband encouraged me instead of discouraged me. He said, go, you can do this. And so we went. I went with my 2 teenage daughters and 4 other college students. I was scared to death. I didn't know the first thing about anything, and I just went. And we chose Mozambique because there had been a hurricane. Am I supposed to be moving this? I'm not good at this. There was a hurricane the last 2 years, and there was all this flooding, and there was this news article that came out. There was a baby that was born in a tree. And the people were living in displacement camps, and they were having babies there, and I thought, well, I can go do something in one of those camps. And so that's what we did, and we went. We went to Mozambique. Mozambique's on the far east coast of Africa. It was colonized by the Portuguese. They left the country devastated, after which there was a civil war that went until 1993. According to the Human Suffering Index, in 1994, it was the poorest country in the world. They lacked infrastructure. 1 in 4 children die under the age of 5. It was a mess. And the advice that we got from the government, from the church, was to go to the highest level of government that we could get into and say, hey, we have this resources, how can we help? I'm a midwife. I thought, right. I couldn't get to square one with anybody that I had tried to talk to before going, so we went without talking to anyone. And we are staying at a backpacker's inn, walking down the street on the second day, just going, what are we doing here? And I'm with all these kids, and we see this truck, and it says Pro Familia on the side. I'm like, okay, we'll talk to this lady. And we talked to this lady, and she said, oh, really? That's what you want to do is help. Well, my cousin is the Minister of Health, and he's coming to my house for dinner tonight. Could you come and join us? So we met the Minister of Health. The next morning, we were meeting at the Ministry of Health with all these leaders, and it just went from there. I told him I was a midwife, maybe I could deliver babies in the camp. He said, no. We need you to train the trainers of the midwives in our country. And so it just opened up in one day, and we just kept walking. They sent us out to some rural areas, and we were able to really see up close. Most of the middle generation in Mozambique is either dead or dying of HIV. And so who's left is the old people, the grandparents, to take care of the babies, or there's child-led families that are taking care of their siblings. The orphanages are full and overflowing and often won't take any more children. I was so completely overwhelmed when I left that. I just thought, where do we start? What do we do? I have no idea. We decided that knowledge was the one thing that they needed the most, and it was something we could do. We didn't have any money. We didn't know anybody who did. And so we just figured we could start with something very basic, and we could start with teaching them some of the things that they needed, and that would be the best help that we could do. So we involved, and Blair will tell you about that.
6 months later, I found myself on a flight with Cindy back to Mozambique after her initial trip. I figured as her husband, having encouraged her to go the first time, I better get involved and get on this train. I was going to fall at the station without me. So we went back, and within a day or two, we were in Beta, which had been hit 2 weeks before that with a large hurricane. There was water everywhere, the roads were destroyed, and we got on with it. And the second day, then we met with 3 branch presidents of the church in a little dark room that didn't have power. And they offered to take us out the next day and let us just visit with some of the members of their branch. This is, by the way, we're walking across this flooded area to the buildings in the background, which is a malaria clinic. Something's wrong with this picture, isn't it? We went into the home. This is one of the families, one of the single sisters with a child that we met with a member of the church. And from that experience and many other visits that we had that day, we went back to a hotel room that night and had a very sleepless night. And Cindy had moments like this on her first trip. And I guess this was my moment where that night, as I sat and thought about what we had experienced that day with members of the church only, the thoughts of Brigham Young Counseling Conference and sending the saints off to the plains to rescue the saints came to my mind, and I knew as I laid there at 3 o'clock in the morning with tears running down my face. Cindy wasn't awake, wasn't asleep either. We just talked that night. We knew that we had to come home and to make what commitments we could to find people who could help us. And so that began the process of us coming home and really getting serious about forming a nonprofit organization. We found friends. We found attorneys and accountants and donors and friends who came forward and participated in Care for Life. And that evolved over time. I'm not going to get into the details of that, but we found the people we needed to find in order to form an organization that could go back and be effective in working on Mozambique. Our experience might be a little bit like this. Our experience was like this, and yours, as you even contemplate doing something like this, might be a little bit like this little clip we're going to show you from a movie that's probably well known.
So we came home from that trip and we just began to try and learn everything we could to research what was happening in the world and how we might fit in there somehow. And what we found out was pretty discouraging. Most of the aid to Africa wasn't helping. In fact, millions and billions were being dumped into Africa, and it was really actually making things worse. It was making people dependent. And we didn't want to do that, but we didn't know what to do because nothing was really out there about how to do it differently. The whole approach then was do one thing and do it well, but we knew that wasn't the need there. They needed everything, and you couldn't just focus on one thing, so we didn't really have anything to guide us. But in a little book that I found this statement, and it really became our motto. Go to the people, live with them, love them, learn from them, work with them. Start with what they have, build on what they know, and in the end, the people will rejoice. We have done it ourselves. And we've tried to do that, and that's how we learn, and we evolved because of that. Our mission is simple and lofty, to alleviate suffering, promote self-reliance, and instill hope. We found a little book called Facts for Life, and it taught basic facts, and it was everything I felt that we needed to use. So we turned it into a really interactive, fun class, and we went around wherever we could with U.S. volunteers to teach that. And then later we evolved, and we decided we needed to choose the poorest area, and we bought a building and we established a learning center. And we added literacy and vocational classes at that time. We had a little nurse show up, and she's like, let me help. And so we had this long line of devastated people at our door every morning who needed help. And I love this picture because it shows the difference. It shows despair. This woman came in and she had a cleft palate baby that was literally starving, days from death. and couldn't give him any milk because he didn't nurse. And just at that time, in that next week, a neonatal nurse was showing up to help. She brought a Herkinger feeder, the baby was able to nurse, and that is hope. They don't even name the babies until they know they're going to live, and so she let us name him after that. You know, we felt like it was a drop in the ocean. Still, we were doing a lot, but there were so many people. We knew we had to do outreach, and there was still that catch-22. How do you help the desperately poor people without giving them things that make them dependent? And I was in Oregon on a completely different assignment one day in the hotel breakfast lobby, and I met a woman from Uganda, and she just was telling me some little thing that she did, but it was like the missing piece to the puzzle for me. She says, well, our people set goals, and we don't give them anything until they've reached those goals. And it was just like the light went off, and I thought, that's what we can do. That's how we can change this. And so this is what began, what we call the Family Preservation Program. And Blair will tell you a little bit about that.
About 6 years ago, we met a man named Joao Bueno, who went through a midlife crisis and went back to graduate school, came to the U.S., learned English, went to BYU Kennedy Center for International Studies, and he just completed those studies, and we hired him as an intern to go to Mozambique and work with the leadership there. And he sat down and worked with the Mozambican leaders, and over the next 6 months, developed a plan, a framework for what we call the Family Preservation Program. Today we have a staff of 60 people. This is about half of our staff in front of what's called the Center for the Preservation of the Family, and where our headquarters is now in Monga, near Beta, Mozambique. The Family Preservation Program is something I'm going to kind of relate to now and give you a whirlwind tour. We have a handout over on the table here that gives you a much more detailed explanation of what that is. I'm just going to give you an oversight. But this is our flagship program of what we now do in Mozambique to help those people there. It's a program that, as we developed, we've carefully documented it. We have a manual, we have data up to the gazoo to document what we're doing and how effective it is. And at some point in time, in the near future, our plan is to share it. We don't have any plan to grow other than just to share it with any other organization in the world. But let's give you just an overview here. We focus our work around the family. And we work with one family and one life at a time, and we work in these 8 areas of emphasis. So when we go into a village, after getting the support of the village leadership behind us, then we go to all the families and they're assessed. We have 52 different indicators that we assess and measure input, intake, and then every 6 months thereafter. We're in a village for three years, and then we're out. We keep assessing on a 6-month basis until 2 years after we've exited that building to make sure that they really truly are safe. These are the different areas that we work in. Now, when we first go in, we provide some finances to help them buy the materials, and then they build a mashesha, or a central meeting place in the village. And this is, basically a 30 by 60 foot building. And in that building, many things happen. It's a central school facility where there's train the trainer programs where we come in with our supervisors and our field officers, and we train their volunteers. We establish literacy classes, children's clubs and classes. These things are busy hubs within the community right from the beginning. And so within 3 months into the facility, into the community, they have built their mashesha and began using that. Our field officers pictured here on the top left work with individuals, with parents, and with the children. They are working with what's called group leaders or zone leaders and group leaders who will become the local volunteer trainers within that community. They're in these communities every other week. They're in people's homes on a very frequent basis, helping them. They become very close with them. Some of the individual goals, these 52 indicators, this slide, this collage represents a collection of just 5 of the different goals that they can work on. Drinking treated water, preventing malaria with sleeping under malaria nets, getting their cooking utensils up off the ground on a tarimba where they're not down with chicken droppings, building a brick line with a tree next to their house. House improvement. This woman is standing in front of the pile of bricks that her husband has made to improve their home. She'll have a brick home shortly. Cindy mentioned the the add-ons or the little rewards that we give after they achieve their goals. These rewards we give them are all materials or seeds or tools that they can use to better their lives. There's nothing frivolous in the things they put out. You see a woman carrying off a bag of cement with a big smile on her face. She knows that's going to end up as a new latrine or a new wall or a concrete lined floor instead of a dirt floor. We have community-based goals as well. We have wells that are done by the whole community. Here's a bicycle ambulance that's given. And they have celebrations on these celebration days. On these days they accomplish their goals. As a community, we have days of celebration. This shows a graduation day. This is the day when Care for Life has left the village. And all the villagers come forward and they have their graduation certificates that shows their family photo and it shows all the different goals that they've accomplished over the 3 years that we've been with them. And on the back it shows it has a commitment statement that they signed that they are committed to carrying forward with these things that they've done to change their lives. It's an exciting time. Just a few stats. Again, we measure 52 indicators. Here are 5. Before, current status, and current means these are from 6 villages who have completed the 3 years of family preservation. Some of these are beyond that by up to 2 years. So the before statistic, you see a family between 35%, current status 79%. You can look it down at these. The last column is the percentage increase. Look at the mosquito nest, 27% initially, 94% at the end of that. Drinking water treated, 16 versus 84. So these are significant changes that are being sustained at least up to 2 years so far in our research with these different groups.
Our goal is to be the last NGO these people will ever need. And I've actually delivered 0 babies in Africa, but I do feel like I can say I've helped to give birth to an organization where in a country where 1 in 11 women die of a pregnancy-related complication, we have not had one maternal death in any of our villages, and over 14,000 people so far. Also, we've decreased the infant and child mortality under the age of 5 by 54%. So stats are just numbers though, and they don't really tell the entire story. What does it mean to a family to have clean water or have a latrine? What it means is they don't have cholera, they don't have parasites, they have strength now that they're going to be able to work and to go to school and to care for their family, or they're not going to die and leave more orphans behind. What does it mean to have a garden? It means they can eat, because they don't have a way to buy food, so this is the only way they can grow food. And if they're literate at the same time, then they can have a business. And they can sell that, and with that money, then they can buy a uniform for their child to go to school, or they can continue to buy the bleach they need to put in their water to treat it. And every number is a story. This is Rabia. She's one of our field officers, and the statistics, there are a lot of statistics that you can't measure at all. And Rabia was telling us, you know, before you came in, people who were sick were isolated. We were afraid of them. We didn't understand them. We've seen them take a sick person and put them out under a tree and leave them there because they thought they were possessed and it was going to hurt their family. Now she says we know the cause of disease. Now we can take care of the people. We love them and they continue to be part of our family. So that's an unmeasurable statistic that we can do. There's child-led families in many of our villages that are struggling. This is Alberto. His mother died when he was 12, his father died when he was 14, and he was left to take care of his 3 siblings. And basically he just lived a hand-to-mouth existence. He tried to beg and find food wherever he could until Care for Life came into his village. He attended the classes, he earned some rewards, and with those rewards he learned how to make bricks. And now he has a brick making business, and he's able to build himself a really good house. He's a leader in the community and teaches other people how to make bricks. And all of them, including Alberto, are in school because he can buy them in uniform. Our mission is to alleviate suffering, promote self-reliance, and instill hope. And we're doing that. But there are thousands of Albertos, and there are thousands of old grandmothers who still need help. Some people have recognized what we're doing, and I kind of hate to brag, but I'll throw this up anyway. This is a comment from the Christian Science Monitor that we're on the forefront doing something that other people haven't done before. This is from Warner Woodruff. If you know Warner, he's been an advisor to the UN, and he's been over there, and his statement is, I think, means a lot to us because of who he is. And just in November, we were chosen as one of the 10 best practices in global health by the U.S. Center for Citizen Diplomacy, and that's a department of the state, subdepartment of the State Department. But we really aren't satisfied with that. There is so much more that we want to do. There's so many more needs out there in the world that we'd like to continue. And to be honest, we're a very small handful of people. And we have a mountain of work to do. And any of us can tell you that wherever we're working in the world. We all need more help. We have a proven program, and we could help a lot more people if we had people like you to join us. I love this quote. A man filled with the love of God is not content with blessing his family alone, but ranges through the whole world, anxious to bless the whole human race. So whatever you do, it comes from here.
A couple more concluding thoughts. One of the other suggested readings for this conference was this book, Social Entrepreneurship, What Everyone Needs to Know. This was on our outline. I looked online, and I downloaded this, and I'm about halfway through it. It's a wonderful book. I wish it would have been out years ago when we started into this operation. One of the ideas that it presents is that it takes many actors to advance change in what we're trying to do here. And some of those actors are people who initiate new ideas or build up old institutions. Some of those who collaborate, work closely with, and build the organizations. And finally, it takes a lot more people who support those in different ways. I think as we sit here today, I would hope that we can see ourselves at least in one of those roles. And it doesn't matter which, it just matters, I think, that we get off the sidelines or don't face Mark's retirement as the old model was, and find ourselves in, starting in one of these roles, either as initiators or collaborators or supporters. And it doesn't matter which one we get involved with. Here's one more thought to ponder. A good friend of ours called us over to his house about 7 or 8 years ago. We were starting Careful Life, and he gave us a little book. In fact, they read the book with us. It's a little book from Arbinger that I know Chad Ford is here from the university, and he's involved with Arbinger. But this book is a great long story. It's a story, but this is a quote that I think we can ponder here as we conclude today. To those who have time, talents, or means to give, I'm not asking you simply to give others what they need. I'm asking you to realize that what you need is to give others what they need. And just think about that for a bit. And what this has meant to us is that involvement in this kind of work has benefits that go both ways. We've been so richly blessed because of our involvement with Careful Life.
In one of my midnight moments over there in Africa, I found the scripture, 2 Corinthians 8:14. It talks about poverty, and it said, out of our abundance we'll supply their needs, and out of their abundance they'll supply our needs. And I've learned what that means, and I'm still learning it. You gain a perspective that you couldn't get any other way. This is our daughter. She spent most of her high school summers and her college summers in Mozambique with us. And she was able to see and learn things that she couldn't have any other way. There's a saying that goes, once you've seen the sunset in Africa, your life will never be the same again. We didn't quite know how true that was. One of the changes is I don't feel powerless anymore. I can read those articles and I can feel good because I'm doing something. And sometimes there's unexpected blessings that come along. We worked in an orphanage, and this little girl in the middle adopted us. And now she's our daughter. She's a wonderful 11-year-old. And she's growing up with our grandchildren. We have been so blessed in the work that we've done, and it's not because we knew anything. It's not because we had any resources at all. It's because the Lord loves his children, and he wants to help them. And he has this way that he does it, and it talks about that in the scriptures. And he says, the earth is full, and there's enough, and to spare. and to share. But the way that I do it, you gotta do it my way. And my way is that my children help each other. And so that's why we were able to do what we did, because he's helped us do that. And if you only remember one thing from what we said, just remember that the majority of our brothers and sisters in the world are poor and need our help. And if you are willing, the Lord will magnify you to help them, and it will be enough. Thank you.